Hey, what's good, everyone? Now, first it was Benjamin Mendy. Now it's Mason Greenwood. They have both been found either not guilty or their charges dismissed, especially in the case of Mason Greenwood. So the question going forward is, can or should both of these players ever play football again? And let me start off with Mason Greenwood, because personally I think the Benjamin Mendy case is a lot more simpler, if I'm honest. Whereas Mason Greenwood, his case is a lot more nuanced, and that's a hell of a lot more difficult just because his case has been dropped as opposed to him being found not guilty, which plays a massive difference in regards to what his life is going to be like going forward. Now, when you read the articles discussing the case, it looks as if the prosecution, it couldn't go forward because it believed it wasn't going to get a conviction because their key witnesses withdrew key cooperation. So because of that fact, they decided, you know what, we're not going to go ahead and press forward. We're going to drop the cases. But again, that doesn't mean he's innocent. But equally speaking, it doesn't mean he's guilty neither. And that's where the grey area lies, because now it's down to, guess what, public opinion as to what his future lies in regards to coming back into the fold. Because since then, Manchester United, his employers, they state that they're going to conduct their own internal investigations. I mean, I don't know what that means, because at the end of the day, surely the police, their investigation should outweigh what the club's investigation should do, unless they have other information, which I don't believe they should have extra than what the police had. I don't know. But again, I believe it's because they have no idea of how to handle the situation. Let's be honest. If they bring him straight back, just imagine the negative press that would be surrounding him. It would be crazy. And that's the last thing that they need right now, considering the way how their club is going. It's trending in the right direction. Things are going well. So this will just be a defining moment and a turning point in a season which seems to be, filled with so much promise. So this idea of the investigation is just their way of covering their backs from a publicity wise, because the owners aren't in good stead with their fans anyway. So doing this without careful consideration, it's definitely not going to look good for their own fans, but even forget their own fans, just for the whole footballing and non-footballing world. And when you consider the video evidence that have already come out about Mason Greenwood, again, you'd be hard pressed to find much support for him in the public. So yeah, I can imagine they're going to have to tread extremely lightly. When you consider that Gary Neville has come under fire for liking a tweet in which he had to since clarify, backtrack, say what he meant or what he didn't mean, etc., etc. So yeah, I think the club have taken their own counsel. They decided to go through this route, but I think, and this is my opinion, I think they're going to say, you know what, we're going to decide it's best for both parties to move on. I believe they'll likely cancel his contracts. They'll find some loophole somewhere where they can find a way of not having to pay up his own contract. And I think they'll tell Mason Greenwood, you have to find employment elsewhere, because what else would you do? What would a massive club like Manchester United do in this situation here? Again, case was dismissed. He wasn't found. He's not found not guilty. Again, he's not guilty also. That is very true. So it all comes down to whether or not they're strong enough, whether or not they have the enough, let's say, courage of their convictions to stand forward and say, you know what, the courts have done their due process, regardless of how you think he may be. There's no evidence to say that he's been convicted, but I don't think that'll be the case. I think they will cancel his contract and they'll move on from him. That's what I think. Should he play football again? I believe he should do. Again, if we want to take video evidence as the damning evidence of what he's done, I mean, by all means, but that's not really how life should work. Do you believe in second chances? Absolutely. This isn't the first time that something like this has happened, if it is deemed to be true, but even on a lesser offence when it comes to just abuse or just physical abuse. I mean, we talk about Ched Evans' situation. He was found guilty. He served his time, played football again. Again, there was massive issues about that, but he still played again. Stan Collymore. Who can forget Stan Collymore? He's a classic case, if there ever was one, about somebody who is known more for his past indiscretions as opposed to his footballing ability. And he was a wonderful footballer. Still, he was a wonderful footballer, let's be honest. Whereas, this is interesting when I compare this to Cristiano Ronaldo. He's probably the most comparable situations between him and Mason Greenwood. Slight differences, but what I mean is his case wasn't brought forward. He had similar allegations, but with Cristiano Ronaldo, he actually settled outside of court. He actually paid the woman, I think it was over like £300,000 to basically shut her up. And I was like, well, hold on. Surely if you're innocent, you wouldn't want to be paying any of that kind of stuff. unless he was advised badly, wrongly, however it was at the time. Listen, make this go away, do it this way, as opposed to going through the whole, putting your name in trial, which would obviously have a negative impact on your brand, because obviously he's a massive, massive brand. But he's not been tarnished. He has not been tarnished by the allegations, even though people aren't too afraid to just remind people at times. There's no way near that Ronaldo, like Stan Collymore, is known more for his past indiscretions than his footballing ability. No chance. And that's why I will say this. One thing is for sure. His reputation, it will never be the same again, especially in the age of social media. And that's really the kicker now. Regardless of whether he's innocent or not, I'm assuming he's definitely guilty on accounts of other issues that are taking place that we've seen. But in the case of his allegation, is he innocent? Again, so far, no one has proven him to be guilty. So he's innocent, fault. At the very least, we have to say that he's innocent. And just finally, I just want to wrap up by speaking on Benjamin Mendy, because this one's simpler for me. He should be able to play for Man City without question. The only thing that he's guilty of, which he's even admitted, is just being an idiot, not being cognizant, not realising the pitfalls of when you're rich and famous and, you know, not the best looking. That's in his own words, that last part. This is what may happen. The women there, they knew exactly what they were doing. When you look at the group chats, you look at the text messages that have been released that confirm this was before and after the fact. They knew what was going on. It looks like they wanted to spend the night with Jack Grealish, but instead got Benjamin Mendy. So it points to buyer's remorse as opposed to it being a non-consensual situation, which by definition makes him not guilty. And he's not out of the water yet, I will say this, because he's still got another trial regarding, I think it's the last 2 victims. But I'm sure, as you said, Benjamin Mendy, he's going to have some serious soul searching to do going forward about, you know, how he's going to move going forward. Because if I was to advise him, and this is for anyone, footballers nowadays, or any rich person or anyone in the media, especially, you got to get cameras, consent forms before dealing with a lot of these women, because we know what it is. We know what it is. And we know what they're after. And we know, again, if people take an inch to steal a mile, we know what happens. We know about the false allegations when things didn't happen or take place the way they wanted to. We know what happens. This is all documented. And all it takes is one false allegation and your reputation's is gone. Reputation's in ruins. Because, again, similar to United, what would City's advisor be telling the club? Again, he's been found not innocent so far. Again, there's another case remaining. But still, they'll be like, he's too much of a risk. He's driven in so much negative publicity that regardless of whether he's innocent, regardless of whether the case has been found or he's been tried and not convicted in a court of law, jury of his peers, all that good stuff, they're going to like, nah, it's too much baggage. But regardless of whether we think that they are innocent or not, because I know a lot of people, regardless of what was taking place, would still have their judgments and still will cast judgments. One thing is for sure, their reputations is in tatters. It's no longer going to be the same. They'll have to rebuild their reputation. Again, I think it's going to be abroad. I don't think they can do it not only at their parent club, but I don't think they can do it even in England. I don't think it's still going to be the same, regardless of if they was to go to another club in England. So I think they'll have to ply their trade elsewhere to try and get away from the British press. But unfortunately, this is going to have to serve as a learning lesson. And I hate how situations like this have to prove it to be a lesson for others, but that's how it goes sometimes. And if there's ever a situation where, you know, young aspiring athletes or, you know, just men in general who are looking to aspire to be something in life should definitely have a look at, is these are the type of things which maybe the pitfalls that you're going to fall under, which, let's be honest, in the case of Benjamin Mendy, it's not because he's done anything wrong, it seems, based on the evidence. So it's just a lesson for those of how to move forward, how to move in this day and age, because one false allegation again, and that's it. Your reputation is done. And regardless of whether you are innocent or not, it doesn't matter. People have their already minds made up. But let me know your thoughts on this. Until next time.